As I approach the front of my bus, I'm checking for leans and leaks. The bus should not be leaning to one side, which could indicate a suspension problem or a flat tire, and there should be no puddles or dripping fluids under the bus that would indicate fuel, coolant, or oil leaks. I'm now checking all of my front lights, my amber lights, my red marker lights, my clearance lights at the top, my high and low beam headlights, my right and left turn signals, and my 4-way flashers. All of these light covers are securely mounted, not cracked, broken, or missing, and they are the proper color for their location. I'm checking all of my mirrors to make sure that they are securely mounted, not loose, not cracked or broken. Checking my windshield to make sure that it is not cracked, broken, or damaged, and that there are no obstructions. I'm checking my wiper arms and wiper blades to make sure that they are mounted securely and the blades are not cracked, frayed, or dry rotted. Here I'll check my coolant level in this sight glass to make sure that it is at the adequate level. I would check my student cross gate to make sure that it opens and shuts freely and is not damaged. Now I'm going to check my front wheel and tire. I'm going to be checking the tire condition, the sidewall, and tread to make sure that there are no cuts, bulges, or any other damage. I would check my air pressure with a gauge. If air was needed, I would fill it to the amount written on the sidewall of the tire. I'm checking my tread depth. On the steer, it must be at least 4/32 of an inch and be evenly worn. I'm checking my valve stem to make sure it is not bent, broken, or leaking, and that the cap is on. I'm checking my rim to make sure that it is not cracked or bent, it's not pulling away from the tire. I don't have any illegal welds. I'm checking all of my lug nuts to make sure none are missing, loose, or have rust trails or shiny threads that would indicate looseness. I'm also checking my hub oil seal to make sure it's not leaking. I don't see any cracks or any damage to my hub oil seal. Moving on to my front suspension, I'm checking the leaf springs to make sure that they are not cracked, broken, shifted, or missing. Checking my spring mounts at the front and the rear to make sure that they're not cracked, broken, or missing any nuts, bolts. I'm checking my U-bolts to make sure that they are secure, straight, not broken. I'm checking my shock absorbers to make sure that they're securely mounted at both ends and not leaking. Now I will check my front brakes. I'm checking the brake chamber to make sure that it is securely mounted, not cracked, not leaking. I'm checking my brake hoses and lines to make sure they are not cut, cracked, worn, or leaking. I will be checking my slack adjusters and push rods to make sure that they are securely mounted, not bent, broken, and with the brakes released, they should not move more than 1 inch when pulled by hand. I'm checking the brake drum and linings to make sure that the drum is not cracked, scored, or contaminated with oil or grease, and that there are no missing bolts or any other damage to the brake drum. Now I'm going to check down the passenger side of the bus. I'm checking all my reflectors, my reflector tape, and windows on this side of the bus to make sure that they are clean, not cracked or broken, and that they're properly mounted. I'm going to check my emergency exits to make sure that they're labeled correctly. I'm going to check my DEF tank for any leaks and make sure that the cap is on securely. I don't see anything leaking underneath. I would check my fuel tank and fuel lines for leaks and make sure that this cap is on tight as well, just like the DEF. It's locked, but I would normally unlock it and check the cap. make sure that the tank is properly mounted. I don't see anything leaking underneath it either. While I'm looking underneath, I'm going to check my drive shaft to make sure that it is not bent, cracked, and that the U-joints are secure and free of damage. I'll check my exhaust system to make sure it's not loose, cracked, broken, and that there are no signs of leaks such as soot or rust. And I'm checking my frame for cracks, broken welds, holes, or any other type of damage to the frame, cross members, box, and my floor here. I'm also checking my mud flaps on the rear, on the front, to make sure that they're not torn, not damaged, and that they're securely mounted. Moving on to my rear wheels, I would check my rear wheels and tires just like I would on the front. I would make sure there's no cuts, bulges, or any other type of damage. My tread should be at least 2 32 of an inch and evenly worn. Again, I'm going to check my rims, my valve stem, lug nuts, my hub oil seal, in the same way as I did my front. Make sure there's no cracks, no leaks, no missing or loose lug nuts, and nothing seems to be damaged in there, no illegal welds. I'm also going to check in between the two duals to be sure that there's no debris lodged in between the two rear tires and that they're not touching. Now I'll check the rear brakes. I'll inspect them the same as I did on the front, checking my brake chambers, hoses, slack adjusters, push rods, brake drums, and all my linings to make sure that they're securely mounted, not damaged in any way, not leaking. I'm going to make sure that my slack adjuster does not move more than 1 inch when pulled by hand with the brakes released. The rear of the bus, I'm checking the rear emergency door to make sure that it opens and shuts freely. The seal is intact. It's not damaged in any way. I'm checking all of my rear lights, my red marker lights, my amber marker lights, my clearance lights, my right and left turn signals, my four-way flashers, breaker lights, tail lights, and reverse lights. And all of these lights are secure, not cracked or broken, and the lights are the proper color for their location. I'm also going to check my exhaust again from the rear, make sure that it's not hanging down, it's not leaking, it's not damaged. Checking the driver's side of the bus, I'm going to check all my reflectors and reflector tape, make sure it's intact, it's not damaged. All my windows are in good condition, not cracked, broken, or damaged in any way. I'm going to check my battery box to make sure that the door is latched, the cables are secure, and there's no corrosion on these terminals here. My stop arm, I'm going to pull it out from the bottom, make sure that it opens and shuts freely. It's not damaged in any way, it's the correct color. I'm going to open my circuit breaker box to check for any damage or exposed wires and to make sure that everything is secure. Check my steering system. The steering gearbox should be securely mounted to the frame with no missing nuts or bolts and no leaks. I'm checking the steering linkage, the pitman arm, drag link, and tie rod to make sure that they're properly connected. They're not worn or damaged, not missing any nuts, bolts, or cotter pins. I don't see any hoses or lines hanging down. Everything seems to be intact. Out of the bus, starting at the service door, I'm checking that it's not damaged and it opens and shuts freely. The glass is not cracked, broken, or missing. I'm going to check my stairwell to make sure that my rubber is intact, clear of any objects, and the step rubber is not loose, so no one will fall. I need to check my handrails to make sure that they're securely mounted, not loose. And I need to check my stepwell light to make sure that it is not cracked, broken, or missing. It works properly. I'm going to check my body fluid cleanup kit and first aid kit. Make sure that they are stored properly. And I'm going to check my fire extinguisher to make sure that it is properly mounted, fully charged, and that the pin and seal are intact. My 3 triangle flares are stored here in this overhead compartment. Before walking back to the back of the bus, I will turn the key to the accessory position so I will be able to hear my emergency exit alarms. I've got 6 window emergency exits. I will make sure that all of those alarm. I also will check my floor as I walk back. I don't need to see any holes, cracks. It looks straight, not damaged. I'm also going to check that all of the seats are securely mounted by pulling on the bottoms of them. I'm going to check my seat backs, make sure that they're secure, not damaged. I want to be sure that they're securely mounted to the floor. My window exits alarm. And on the top here, I've got 2 emergency exit hatches that will also alarm if opened. At the back, I'm going to open my emergency door to make sure that it opens and closes properly and that it sounds its alarm. All of my emergency exits are labeled clearly and properly. Now, I will check the engine compartment with the engine off. Here is where I would check my engine oil. I would check its level by pulling out the dipstick, wiping it clean, reinserting it, and then pulling it out again to make sure that the oil is at the proper level. If I needed to add any oil, I could add it into there. This is where I would check my transmission fluid to make sure that it's above the refill mark. My power steering fluid can be checked here to make sure that it's at the proper level. My power steering pump is gear driven. I can't see it, but if I could, underneath here I would check my alternator and water pump to make sure that they're securely mounted, not leaking, and that their belts are not cracked, frayed, or excessively loose. Both of those are belt driven. I would check my air compressor also if I could see it to make sure that it is securely mounted and it's not leaking and it is gear driven. I would check all of my hoses in the engine compartment for any leaks, cracks, or bulges and just make sure I don't see anything that looks out of order. Now that I'm at the driver's seat, I'm checking the windshield again from the inside to make sure that there are no obstructions to my view. It's clean, clear, no stickers. Now I'm checking my mirrors to make sure that they are properly adjusted for me after I've adjusted my seat. I'm going to check my student mirror to make sure that it is not damaged and that I can see out of it properly. Now, I'm going to check my seatbelt. Make sure that it is not cut or frayed and that it latches properly. fits snug. Now I'm going to start the engine, but I'm going to make sure that the bus is in neutral before I start it for a safe start. Once the engine is running, I'm going to check my temperature gauge, my oil pressure gauge, and air pressure gauge to make sure that they are all building to normal operating ranges. I'm going to check my amp meter, my voltmeter to make sure that the system is charging properly. I'm going to check my DEF to make sure that it has no less than 1/8 of a tank. I'm going to check my headlights, my turn signals, my 4-way flashers, all to make sure that they are working properly. And then I'm going to start over here on my controls. I'm going to name those off to you. This is my strobe light, my interior light, my driver dome light, my horn, my fans, which can also be used as my defrost, my heat, my passenger heater, my heater pump, my radio for the office, my student microphone, my horn, my service brake, my gas pedal. These are my wipers. If I push that in, fluid will come out. This is my ambers, my door switch, my parking brake, now with the bus running, I'm going to perform my air brake check. I'll allow the air pressure to build up between 120 and 140 psi so I can test my air brakes. This is my air gauge. Once the pressure is at the proper range, or whenever I hear the governor shutoff valve, which is the shh sound, then I will turn my engine off and then turn it back to the accessory position again so I can monitor the gauges and hear my low air pressure alarm. Okay, so my pressure is built up between 120 and 140. So I have to make sure that I'm turning my bus off to do this. So I'm going to turn my bus off, back to the accessory position. I'm going to push in my parking brake with my foot on the service brake. I'm going to ask my examiner to time me for 1 minute, and as long as I don't lose more than 3 psi in that minute with my foot held on the service brake, then I will be good. After the minute is up, I will begin fanning the brake pedal, pumping the brakes to lower the air pressure. The low air pressure warning should activate around 55. And as I continue to fan the brakes, the parking brake valve should pop out around 40 psi, indicating the spring brakes have engaged. So there's my low air pressure alarm. It's already alarming. Keep fanning. Waiting on my parking brake to pop out. Okay, so my parking brake engaged. It was supposed to do. Now I'm going to start my bus back up and allow the air pressure to rebuild between 120 and 140 so I can check my parking brake and my service brake. So I'll let my air pressure build back up between 120 and 140 or until I hear my governor cutoff valve. hear my governor cutoff valve. It went off, the sound. So now I'm going to test my parking brake. To do that, I'm going to leave my parking brake engaged. I'm going to put the bus in drive. I'm going to give it a little gas. As long as my parking brake holds, I don't move forward, then it is good. Now, to check my service brake, I'm going to leave the bus in drive. I'm going to push in my parking brake. I'm going to pull forward at about 5 miles per hour. Putting on my brakes. The bus should stop smoothly and should not pull to the left or the right when you do that. Next, I'm going to ask that the examiner step out so we can do a light check. You can see it up here. I would do my left blinker, right blinker, hazards. My headlights are already on. I would do my ambers. Open my door and do my reds. My stop arm opens properly. My student cross gate opens properly. Now the examiner will go to the back of the bus and I will do the same things again. I'll do my left blinker, right blinker, hazards, ambers, reds, and now in the back I'm going to add my reverse lights, and then I'm going to add my brake lights.